Sonder. You're sitting in traffic and you glance over at the car next to you. There's just some random person in there tapping their fingers on the wheel, completely in their own world. And for a second, it hits you. That person has an entire life, a childhood, a set of fears, an argument they've been replaying all week, a favorite song, people they love, a whole story that's just as long and complicated as yours, and you'll drive away and never know a single thing about any of it. That feeling is called Sonder. It's that moment when you realize that every single person around you is living a life that's just as full and real as yours. It sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but actually feeling it, really feeling it, is something different. It usually hits in crowded places, train stations, busy streets, airports. Your brain tries to actually grasp that every face you see is a whole person, and then it kind of gives up because the scale is too much. It's one of those feelings that's hard to describe as either good or bad. It's just big. Hiraeth. You probably know what nostalgia feels like. That warm, slightly sad pull toward the past. But there's a version of it that goes a step further, where you're not just missing a time, you're missing a place or a feeling or a version of your life that doesn't exist anymore. And the hard part is that even if the place still exists, the thing you're actually missing doesn't. You can go back, but it won't be the same. In Welsh, they call this Hiraeth. It's a longing for home, but a home you can't return to, or maybe one that never quite existed the way you remember it. Welsh speakers will tell you it genuinely doesn't translate into English. Not because they're being dramatic, but because we really don't have a word for it. People feel it for their childhood neighborhood after it changes, for the early days of a relationship, for a summer that felt like it would last forever. There's a grief to it. Even though technically nothing bad happened, things just moved on. And somewhere in that gap, Hiraeth lives. Limerence. You know that phase early on with someone you like where your brain basically stops working. You've had maybe 2 real conversations with this person, but you've already thought about them an embarrassing number of times. You check your phone more than you want to admit. When they do message, there's this little rush that doesn't make sense given how little you actually know them. That's not just a crush. A psychologist named Dorothy Tenoff studied this in the 1970s and gave it a name, limerence. What makes it different from just liking someone is how involuntary it is. You're not choosing to think about them constantly. Your brain is just doing it over and over, and it doesn't stop until it gets the information it's looking for. Because the real thing limerence is after is reciprocation. It's not just about the person. It's about whether they feel it too. Every small thing they do gets read into. A fast reply means something. A slow one means something else. The moment the uncertainty disappears, either they like you back or they don't, the feeling tends to fade pretty quickly, which tells you a lot about what it actually was. Kenopsia. There's something specifically unsettling about a place built for people when the people are gone. A school during summer break, an office on a Sunday evening, a stadium an hour after the game ended. Cups still on the floor, lights still on. These places were designed for crowds. The chairs, the signs, the layout, all of it assumes people are supposed to be there. And when they're not, something feels off in a way that's hard to explain. That's Kenopsia, the eerie feeling you get in an abandoned place that used to be full of life. What makes it different from just being in an empty room is that you can feel the absence. If you'd never known the place was full, it would just be a room. But because you know what it's supposed to be, the emptiness has a texture to it. People get the same feeling from old social media profiles that haven't been touched in years or home videos of people who have since died. The structure is still there, the person isn't. And that gap creates something genuinely strange. Chrysalism. There's a reason so many people say they love rainy days. And it's more specific than just liking the look of rain. When it's properly pouring outside, loud enough to hear, bad enough that going out would be miserable, and you're inside warm with nowhere to be, something shifts. The outside world and all its demands becomes physically unreachable. And in that, there's a kind of permission. Permission to stay put, to not deal with anything, to just exist where you are. This is Chrysalism, named after the chrysalis, the cocoon a butterfly lives in before it emerges. It's that specific feeling of being sealed off from the world in a way that feels safe rather than trapped. What makes it work is the contrast. The noise of the storm outside is actually part of what makes the warmth inside feel so good. Your brain registers the difference and relaxes. That's the feeling. It's why some people will crack a window just to hear the rain better. Vellichor. Used bookshops have an atmosphere that's hard to put your finger on. It's not just the smell of old paper, though that's part of it. It's something about the objects themselves. The fact that every book on those shelves has already had a life before it ended up here. Someone bought it, maybe read it cover to cover, maybe didn't, left a receipt inside as a bookmark or underlined something that meant something to them at the time. And then for whatever reason, it got let go. And now it's here, available again, waiting for someone new. Vellichor is the word for that feeling. The quiet, slightly sad atmosphere of used bookshops and secondhand stores. Places full of objects that used to belong to someone's life and now don't. There's a melancholy to it, but it's not a heavy one. It's more like a soft reminder that time passes, things change hands, and the world is full of small histories you could spend a lifetime discovering. Monachopsis. You're at a party or a work event or some gathering where everyone seems comfortable and the conversation is flowing and you're fine. You're talking to people, you're smiling. Nothing is technically wrong, but there's this low-level constant feeling that you're slightly off. Not unwelcome, more like a piece that doesn't quite fit the puzzle it's been placed in. Monachopsis is the word for that, the subtle, persistent feeling of being out of place. What makes it different from just being shy is that it doesn't really go away once you relax or warm up. It's more like something about your frequency doesn't match the room, and no amount of adjusting closes the gap. People who feel this regularly tend to have the same quiet thought underneath it all, that somewhere there's a room they'd walk into and it would just work. Where fitting in would be effortless, where they'd stop noticing the gap. Most of us spend a decent amount of our lives looking for that room. Mauerbauertraurigkeit. This one comes from German, which should surprise nobody given the length of the word and the precision of what it describes. Someone reaches out to you, a friend, a family member, someone who genuinely wants to spend time with you and hasn't done anything wrong. And something in you just closes. You make an excuse, say you're busy, put it off, and then you sit alone, which is technically what you chose, but it doesn't feel good either. Mauerbauertraurigkeit, roughly the wall builder's sadness, is that the urge to push people away even when you don't really want to. What makes it different from just needing alone time is the involuntary quality of it. It feels more like a reflex than a decision. And then there's the loneliness that follows. The particular kind that's hard to complain about because you created it yourself. Anemoia. You find a book of old photographs or stumble on some footage of a city street from the 1970s or watch an old home video with those washed-out colors in the slightly wrong aspect ratio, and you feel this pull toward it, a longing for that time, that look, that pace of life. Which doesn't make much logical sense because you weren't there. You have no memories of it. There's no real reason to miss something you never had. And yet, the feeling is real and it's pretty common. It's called anemoia, nostalgia for a time you've never known. The reason it happens is pretty straightforward. Old media only shows you the good stuff. The photos that got kept were the nice ones. The footage that survives tends to be celebrations and ordinary days that someone thought were worth recording. You're not seeing what it was actually like to live then. You're seeing the highlight reel filtered through an aesthetic that now feels warm and familiar. What you're really longing for is probably simplicity, and the past just happens to be the easiest place to project that onto. Occhiolism. Sometimes, usually when you're tired or staring at the sky too long, you get this sudden, uncomfortable sense of how small you are. There are 8 billion people on this planet right now, all doing something. The universe is so large, the numbers stop meaning anything. You are one person in one place in one tiny window of time in a history that goes back billions of years. And yet somehow the thing you said at work last Thursday is taking up most of your brain right now. That feeling is called Occhiolism. The awareness of how small your experience is compared to the actual scale of everything. Some people find it freeing, like the pressure comes off when nothing matters that much in the big picture. Others find it unsettling, like the floor briefly disappearing. Most people find it both, depending on the day. Either way, it tends to show up uninvited and leave on its own schedule. Onism. You're going to live one life, one timeline, one body, one sequence of days. And at some point, that becomes very real to you. Every choice you make is also a choice not to make 100 others. Every city you live in is a city you picked over dozens you didn't. Every path you take closes off paths you won't. The life you're building is, by definition, being built at the cost of every other version you could have had. Onism is the frustration of being stuck in just one place and one life. The quiet awareness of how much you're missing simply by being here, living this version rather than any of the other ones that were technically available to you. It tends to show up when you're reading about a place you'll probably never visit or watching a documentary about a completely different kind of life and feeling the gap. The internet has probably made this worse. You've never had such easy access to evidence of all the lives you're not living. Every corner of human experience is one click away, which is incredible and also sometimes a lot to sit with, because no matter what you choose, you're always aware of everything you didn't.